Good evening, this is Kent here reporting from Vietnam, where the war continues to rage on. The terrain of this country is one of the most difficult and dangerous factors that both sides have to face. From the mountains and valleys of the north to the swamps and deltas of the south, Vietnam offers a variety of challenges and opportunities for these combatants. One of the most prominent features of the terrain is the dense jungle that covers much of the land. The jungle provides cover and concealment for the Viet Cong and North Vietnamese Army, who use it to launch ambushes, set up booby traps, and hide their supplies and bases. The jungle also hampers the mobility and visibility of the U.S. and South Vietnamese forces, who have to rely on helicopters, roads, and trails to move around. I am now driving through one of these dense jungle roads, accompanied by a U.S. Army patrol. As you can see, this road is narrow and winding, and the trees and bushes are so thick that you can barely see more than a few feet ahead. The patrol leader tells me that they have to be on a constant alert for any signs of enemy activity, such as wires, mines, or movement. He says that they have encountered several firefights and ambushes along this road, and that they have lost some of their comrades to snipers. The terrain of Vietnam is not only a challenge for the ground forces, but also the air forces. The U.S. and South Vietnamese air forces have been conducting bombing and napalm raids on the enemy positions and supply lines. But they have also faced heavy anti-aircraft fire. The enemy has used the terrain to their advantage by hiding their guns and missiles in caves, tunnels, and camouflage sites. The air forces have to fly at low altitudes and high speeds to avoid being hit, but this also exposes them to small arms fire and rockets from the ground. The terrain of Vietnam is a complex and diverse environment that has shaped the course and outcome of the war. That's all for now. This is Kent Garrett, signing off from Vietnam. Stay tuned for the next segment, where we talk about the weather of Vietnam and how it affects the war efforts as well. Good morning, everyone. We're here in Saigon, where the weather is hot and humid as usual, but it's also influenced by the monsoon season. That brings both challenges and opportunities for the U.S. and South Vietnamese forces fight against the Communist North and its allies. The monsoon season in Vietnam typically lasts from March to November, but it can vary depending on rainfall and temperature patterns. So far, the most significant development in the war is the U.S. strategy of Vietnamization, a policy in which U.S. forces transfer their responsibilities to the South Vietnamese military. At the beginning of 1970, about 450,000 American troops were stationed in Vietnam. The second half of the year saw a reduction in large U.S. operations, with the focus shifting to pacification and supporting Vietnamization. The weather could affect Vietnamization in several ways. On one hand, the monsoon season could provide natural cover and mobility for the Viet Cong, who can use it to evade detection and strike at enemy targets. On the other hand, the monsoon season could also create opportunities for humanitarian assistance and development, as well for diplomatic engagement and political dialogue. The U.S. and South Vietnamese forces have to adapt their strategies and tactics to take advantage of both aspects of monsoon season. That's all for today's segment. Stay tuned for more updates on the Vietnam War and its impact on the region and the world.
Hello, and welcome to our show. Today we have the opportunity to speak to Mike Jones, a U.S. machine gunner who served during Vietnam and served in a small, unnamed offensive. Mike, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a real honor to be here and share my experience with you and your audience.
Can you tell us a bit about yourself and your role as a machine gunner in Vietnam?
So I enlisted in the Army in 1966, and I was a heavy machine gunner. I was responsible for providing heavy support fire for the other infantrymen.
What were some challenges and dangers that you faced as a machine gunner in Vietnam?
The war was brutal and unpredictable. One day would be completely different from the next, but the jungle was a constant. We always had to be on the lookout for enemies hiding in the bushes and the trees. That offensive was the most brutal and intense fighting that I have done. We had to recapture previously captured bases by the North Vietnamese. We had to recapture U.S. bases along the river. It was also seen as a test to see if we could indeed make a comeback in a large-scale push with limited focus and strategy.
How did you cope with the aftermath of this small unnamed offensive?
The aftermath of that small unnamed offensive was devastating for me personally, and it affected me deeply emotionally. I often found myself questioning my values and purpose, especially as a soldier, and the morals of this. And now I appreciate life so much more after being there. I coped with the aftermath by seeking support from my fellow soldiers, my family and friends, and I am very happy that I was able to get the support I needed.
During this small unnamed offensive, there was a tank crew that defeated many enemies, all by themselves. Their official kill count was 6, and they suffered 0 casualties. Luckily, we have the footage of this encounter.